Family harm and violence against children is reaching alarming levels in New Zealand. The Salvation Army's annual State of the Nation report, released today, paints a grim picture of families under pressure, with rising living costs and financial stress pushing some households to the brink. Ava Whitworth reports.
Family violence is now at its highest level since 2018, despite an overall drop in violent crime. The Salvation Army today releasing its annual State of the Nation report, warning the situation is dire. Economic stress is only adding to the problem. The government's emergency food grant cap of $200 a year for a single person is being criticised as too low to cover basic groceries. It hasn't changed since 2008.
Having worked at the front lines, I know that food grants are a lifeline for people who may not have enough to make ends meet the day after. And this is why we've long called for the food grant limit to be increased so that people can access this essential assistance. So we back the calls from the Salvation Army today, and we hope the government listens.
But Minister for Child Poverty Reduction, Louise Upston, says that isn't her priority right now.
Will you do that? Bump that $200 figure up?
I don't have any plans to do that at this stage.
During the year to June 2025, there were almost 108,000 reports of concern for possible child abuse or neglect, a 44% increase compared with the previous year and previous 5 years. Police now respond to a family harm incident every 3 minutes, while charges for family harm rose almost 4% and police safety orders climbed to just over 27,000. Meanwhile, 156,000 children were living in material hardship, up from 144,000 the year before. These figures come on the same day the coroner report into 5-year-old Malachi Schubex's death was released. His carer, Michaela Barrable, was found guilty of his murder after inflicting multiple blunt force head injuries. He died at Starship Children's Hospital in November 2021. The report revealed opportunities to identify his abuse and neglect were missed, sparking national outrage, including a system-wide review led by the late Dame Karen Putasi. In October of 2022, Upston accepted all 14 of the recommendations by Putasi, one of those being mandatory reporting of child abuse across healthcare, welfare, education, children's services, residential services and law enforcement.
I want to assure you there will be no chief executive of any of the agencies that are involved in delivering on those recommendations, that our government is very clear. We want action. We want delivery of those recommendations to ensure that children are safer in New Zealand.
The Salvation Army says they know that family violence can commonly affect those facing poverty.
You know, we're seeing the financial hardship, we're seeing the struggle in regards to food insecurity, we're seeing the stress and anxiety that builds up with families, the lack of employment, the lack of going back and forth with MSC, and, you know, obviously that's going to boil up somewhere.
With family violence at record levels and economic stress pushing families to the limit, advocates warn more needs to be done to prevent tragedies like Malachi's from happening again.
For more on this, I'm joined by the Children's Commissioner, Dr. Claire Ahmad. Kia ora, Dr. Ahmad. So the stats in the Salvation Army report tell us that we're going backwards, that child poverty rates are increasing, family violence is increasing. It is grim reading. What do you make of it?
Yes, Sam, it is absolutely grim reading, and what it shows is that far too many of our families in whānau are under significant pressure. Life is really tough for them right now, and we know that when households are struggling, children are struggling. And so what we see when it comes to our child poverty rates, those went up last year on the official statistics, and I'm concerned that we're going to see another increase when the official statistics come out in a couple of weeks. And then if we turn to look at this issue of family violence and violence against children, we've seen, for example, over the past 5 years that the rate of hospitalisations of children for assaults and abuse have actually been increasing. And that deeply concerns me, because every child in New Zealand should be growing up safe and well. And when we turn back to the issue of poverty, We can see that when children are living in poverty, we are depriving them of a full childhood. We are depriving them of their full potential. And so the need to see change on these things is urgent.
Why is this such a persistent and, as the report says, growing problem in New Zealand?
Well, if we look at both of these issues, I think the fact is that collectively as a nation, and I'm talking about at the systemic level and then at our community, collective, public at large level, I simply don't think that we have placed enough urgent focus on addressing these things. We haven't prioritised children to the extent that we need to. There are some signs of hope, and now I really want to see us move with urgency. Let's make this the year that we recommit to reducing child poverty and to ensuring that every child is growing up safe and well, free of all forms of violence. We can do that.
The horrific report also out today about young Malachi Schubeck says that he was failed by everybody, every agency in the final 6 months of his young life. Why are we as a country not learning these lessons?
I acknowledge Malachi for the precious child that he was, very much loved by his whānau. I think that what this report shows us from the coroner is that at multiple points in the system, Malachi and his rights, they weren't prioritised. He remained invisible to those systems, and we need to recognise that that breached his rights. But it is possible to make the change that is needed, and the coroner has been very clear, alongside the late Dame Karen Potasi, about the change that is needed, and I want to see those things continue to be actioned now.
Dr. Ahmad, it's an election year. What do you want to see political parties do to turn these abysmal stats around?
It's quite simple. Prioritise our country's children. Make investments and focus on policies that will support children to grow up safe and well, that will significantly reduce child material hardship, and that will actually move our systems so that they see children, they keep them safe. And actually, it's also for the public at large too. Let's collectively focus on children and make them our priority this year.
Children's Commissioner Dr. Claire Ahmad, thank you for your thoughts on this today. Tēnā koe.